economic drain. I mean, everybody has a friend or has their own house that the bills are just way too high in order to be comfortable. It's something that hurts. And there's also, we've all heard about sick homes and homes where, you know, you get allergies and there's fumes, there's things in the air that are not healthy. So those are negative impacts that exist. But there's also positive impacts. You can turn those things around. You can actually build a home that saves energy, really saves energy, to the point where it cuts it in half or more, which is what our company has been doing. We've got to that point 10% of the way into this process. And so we think it can go much further. Water in the desert is a giant problem. We need to conserve water. And so, you know, we want to do things in our houses that use less water. Or we can recycle water. We can use gray water systems. We can use rainwater harvesting. Those are all positive things that a home can do. Also, they provide our shelter. That's where we live. That's where we want to live in a place that's comfortable. So that's a positive of a home. And we want to provide a healthy environment for our families. Some place where you can live and actually be safe. We spend a lot of time indoors. And sometimes when you do a test on homes, the air inside is more dangerous than the air outside. You know, and so we want to do things in building a house that improve the quality. And I said I wanted to keep this simple. When we started this whole thing, I didn't have the buy-in of the company that I worked for completely. I had the buy-in to start the process. So I had to be very, very careful on budget, very careful on what we did, because I was convinced that we could prove that the best home is actually the most cost-effective home to build. And so we started with really obvious things. Put good windows in. Maybe don't use as much lumber. Try and figure out ways that you save a little bit of lumber along the way. Insulate correctly and follow the rules of good insulation practices, so that, you know, when we redid our scopes of work for our contractors, they couldn't charge us more if we wrote it into their contract that they had to meet a standard and do it the way it's supposed to be done. Seems like a very obvious thing, but there's this thing in the building industry that you'll do it up to industry standards. That's written into a lot of contracts. That's nothing, because the industry standards have been terrible. Really, you should do it right. And so we redid our scopes of work so that people that worked on our projects would be forced to do it correctly. And there's no cost increase for that. So that's our original thing, was to try and find the simple things. And really what we're trying to do is just keep the outside air out and keep the inside conditioned area in, whether it's heating or cooling season. So those are you know, simple things that don't cost much money. We took a good hard look at it. We talked a little bit about systems. When we started to do this, we started to see the interrelation of all the different things. We had built for a long time with 2x6 construction, and you know, we did insulation, you know, better insulation. We used good products, but we didn't really look at it as a system. We didn't really try to make each system help each other system, and we didn't see the benefits of that. We found that when you start, like in our original attempt, we just made little changes along the way. We made sure that our ductworks were sealed. We made sure that the equipment was sized properly. We made sure that we insulated properly and inspected every house. So we went through all those things, and they were small. But we went and did our first testing, and we found out, wow, we just improved this house tremendously. And so we easily met Energy Star standards, and then we found out that we actually met a standard that gave us a tax credit, $2,000 tax credit for every home we built, because we could document that we saved 50% on heating and cooling. And we hadn't spent anything yet at that point. And so as we went into that, then the company buy-in came. And it was really easy then to say, okay, we need to go further. We need to get into this. So, and at the bottom I have that thing, use the budget wisely and create value. That's a really important thing for a builder. I don't know if any of you are builders, but there's a temptation to think, and for buyers too, there's a temptation temptation to think this is going to be really expensive. And it can be. You can just go and like take your existing house and put a giant solar system on top of the house and spend $30,000. But if the house doesn't work correctly, if it isn't efficient, if it isn't built to use that energy that you create wisely, then you wasted your money. And so you really, really want to do things to use whatever budget it is as wisely as possible, so that the house, the final, total combination of all the systems work better. Insulation is something I talked about a little bit. It's really funny because if you have minor errors, as little as 5% gaps alongside the insulation, you can lose over 50% of the value of the insulation. And then, some systems you put them in and you pay for something and it has this big R value rating on it. Well, that R value is in a lab if it's done perfectly. Well, if it isn't done perfectly, you don't get that R value. So you want to look for ways to make that insulation really work. We did that thing where we put it in the specs where everything would be inspected. If it failed, they would have to come back at their cost and fix it. And at first, we had to do that. Over time, they learned it's not cost effective for them to do it wrong. And so that then they would do it right. We inspect every job. Either we have third-party people that inspect. If they can't make it for one house, we inspect ourselves and we make sure. Windows was another thing. Windows are very important. Big thing is not to put too many in. Use them wisely. Don't just throw glass everywhere, because the best window isn't anywhere near as good as the wall that is put in. It's not even close on energy rating. So you want technology is good, and put some good windows out there. You want to use the best window, but try and limit the use and be careful where you put them. So the big thing was when we started in the Energy Star program a couple of years ago, they changed it and they mandated that mechanical systems had to be designed to a manual J calculation, which is a system that takes into account the full system of the house, the square footage, the volume, the orientation, the amount of glass, what the insulation is, all the parts. And the computer will tell you exactly what size unit and what size ductwork you should use. And that was a very, very key point. And what we found out, which was really great for us, was that houses that were designed to have 2 furnaces and 2 air conditioning systems because of the size of the house now have 1. And we saved money because of the other things, the insulation, the way we framed, the way we sealed the framing, the windows that we used. We were able to save, and we were able to cut several $1,000s out of the mechanical cost of the house. We put some of that money back into controls, because controls are another thing that help you in comfort as well as in energy savings, so that we can control sections of the house individually. We don't have to just live with however it is. We can have a master bedroom on its own thermostat, and another part of the house on a thermostat. We have a 2-story house that has 3 different programmable thermostats for different parts of the house, all controlling the same furnace and air conditioner. So that is an area that would be considered too expensive, but compared to buying a whole other unit, it's inexpensive. And this is another one. Now, we're building extremely tight. We test every home with a blower door test. We make sure that there is no air from the outside coming in unwanted. Well, that can lead to a problem of the sick air. What happens if air doesn't get circulated? What happens if you don't replenish it or refresh it? So we have ventilation systems built into the house, but we do it in an orderly way through the thermostat to control when we need to bring fresh air in through an outside duct. But that fresh air isn't just like opening your windows and whatever pollens or whatever's out there blows in. This comes in through a good filtering system. So it's controlled and it's ventilated correctly so that the air is actually healthier inside the house.